I'll just pop that where it should be. Wonderful. Hey, and I'm back again. Peace. So I'm a little bit frustrated because I've recorded this one like 3 times and I keep having technical issues, and it's because I'm using an old computer today because mine is in the shop because it broke, which is the best possible time for that to happen. However, I believe I've fixed the problems now. Now I just have to kind of unearth some enthusiasm for something I've done 3 or 4 times. So this is the second part of chapter 3, DAW Skills, to do with time. There's 2 ideas we're looking at here. One is about saving time, and the other one is about making time. Ooh, clever. So the saving time idea is quite simple. I call it placeholding. We've made some inroads to placeholding already by lining up a load of likely instruments and sounds that we might use to create your average film score. So placeholding, what I'm talking about now, is to do with basically as a musician, we can play stuff. We play, we jam, and we just come up with ideas just like out of nowhere. Sometimes they're amazing. We're also very good at responding to what other people are doing and to like the environment that we're playing in, particularly if we're just kind of coming up with random ideas. The instrument you're playing with will have an influence on that as well. Personally, if I'm playing piano sort of on my own, it tends to be a little bit kind of post-French romantic, reflective solo man on the piano. If I'm playing electric guitar, it's like all the way up to 11, stupid feedback, doom, heavy metal. So with that in mind, sitting in front of a film being played and just immediately coming up, jamming out some ideas and recording them straight away is just a really, really good way of getting started. Firstly, because it placeholds your ideas. And by placeholding, I mean you're just skeletoning. You've got a skeletal idea of what kind of themes you may have, the pacing and so forth, which we'll come to in a moment. And then you can come back later and flesh all that out with different arrangements, different instruments, more detailed production, etc, etc, etc. As a musician, it's a good idea just to respond to the film honestly, instantly. A lot of famous film composers do this. Hans Zimmer does it. Vangelis notoriously does it to quite an extreme degree, where he would just literally live jam everything first take whilst watching the film and just respond to it in that kind of honest way. I mean, for me, I would like watch the film, play along, jam a couple of ideas out, and then go back and kind of clean it up a little bit and go, oh, that bit worked. Oh, if I time that bit up with that scene change, and so on. So that's placeholding. And what it does is it just creates like a skeleton of the structure of your whole piece. It gives you some basic ideas about the themes that you might end up using, things like that. And importantly, it also sets the pace. And now we're just moving on to number 2, which is about making time, right? So pace is, in film, well, it refers to like the sense of action and speed and the sense of tempo of the film. It can be influenced by the literal action that's occurring, explosions and people running and all that stuff. But usually it's also specifically refers to fast cuts. When there are quicker cuts happening, that's usually because the director wants to give the impression that lots is going on and it's quick and stressful and dramatic. Whereas if there's big, slow, ambient landscape shots cruising around, then the pace is slow, languorous, and sort of relaxed and calm. And you, as a musician watching a film, will respond to that very honestly just by playing along. Obviously though, so when we're talking about responding to the pace, really we're talking about changing the tempo of your music. And when we perform stuff not to a click, the tempo will fluctuate a tiny bit anyway. It's very common, and in fact it's only in contemporary music that doesn't really happen. It was a given, it's a normal thing to happen in live music, and it's actually beneficial to the music in some instances. You may want to speed it up for the exciting bit and slow it down for the chilled bit. That's perfectly normal. For example, if it's electronica, if it's got loads of beats in it and those sorts of things, then it is very gridlocked to tempo, because that's the style. In which case, you may just want to program some stuff. But what we're going to need is, if we're performing and we're dramatically changing the tempo to match the gradually changing pace of the movie, for example, as tension increases and the cuts speed up and you want the music to speed up too, you need logic to be able to figure out what tempo you're playing at and match it. And I'm going to show you how to do that. First things first, there was a little bit of a thing that I can't remember if I mentioned it in the last video. I think I did. First things first is I want to make sure that I can hit this scene, because this is like that big reveal of the island scene. So I've got I have a very rough idea of like a loose chord sequence and a vibe that I'm going to record, just sort of take it and just see how it comes out as a placeholder. But I want to make sure that I hit this change. So I'm going to add a normal marker. And then, guess what? I'm going to convert the marker to a scene marker, thusly. Notice it, the little clock appears. That means that it is now a SMPTE locked marker. It means that it is in real time. So where that marker is, no matter how much I change the tempo of the arrangement, that marker will stay locked at that position in the film, no matter what else I do. If it was a normal marker, it would be linked to the bar, therefore it would move if I changed the tempo of the track prior to where the marker is. But I've locked it. So now I'm just going to quickly record this rough idea of a thing I've got. And I'm going to make an effort to really make some big changes in tempo so that then we can move forward and do the smart tempo kind of stuff. Okay, let's go. The comedy laugh. Just to remind you all that I am just improvising this totally. I'm going to go back to something a bit more tensiony now. So I sped back up again there. The old belt scene. Smarmy guy. Now, in this bit, it's not really timing out very well, but it's just a placeholder. But I have a kind of question chord that I'm going to finish on. Which matches nicely the slowdown with the sort of landing of the helicopter. Okay, so like I said, just an improvisation with some rough ideas. There's a few wrong notes in there. I would go back, maybe re-record it as a placeholder and go, yeah, some of that's good. I'd like it to time up better like this and like that, and then I'd give it another go, or I could get in and edit it. Obviously, I've not recorded its tempo at all, and as you could hear, the tempo was fluctuating a great deal on purpose to match the pace. I wanted there to be tension in the helicopter, and then for it to reveal on that island, and for it to go, beautiful island, and just kind of slow down and become more grand and so forth. How do I get the tempo out of this? Well, what I do is I go to the smart tempo down here. So I double click on this to bring out the piano roll, go over to the right, smart tempo. And it says, you have not analysed this yet. And so I say, well, please do. Now, at the first instance, because of the method we're using, bearing in mind we've got this is set to keep, not adapt, but keep. So the first sweep analysis is always incorrect. So we go edit, and we go remove original recording tempo and analyze again. And it goes, goodness gracious me, do you really wish to do this? And you, of course I do, yes. And you could see there, you notice all these lines move. Now, I'm just going to look in a little bit more detail at what these lines and so on are. If we zoom in. So all they are is, those are the bar lines. So that's one bar line, and then these are the beat lines. And what it's done is, as you can tell, it's looked at groups of 4 notes, say, and it's just tried to kind of align the bar line and then the beat lines, one with each. And by doing that, it's been able to, obviously I've slowed down, so it's managed to figure out the tempo. If I put the play bar sort of there, you can see the tempo that is red is here. So that's at 81. So it's very clearly making changes. If I go back to the start, 104. Now, sometimes it's not that reliable. It's up to you to fiddle with it. Sometimes I find a lot of my pieces perhaps use odd bar numbers, odd bar lengths as well, like 5/4, and also sort of bars, groups of 3 bars and stuff like that. And that sort of thing can confuse it. The other thing is if there are extremely abrupt changes in tempo, it can confuse it as well. But there are ways to edit it once it's been made. Now this has come out pretty good. When you skim through it, it looks about right. Everything's lining up okay. You can change these bar positions and beat positions in a variety of ways. I just wanted to show you they were there for now. I'm going to do another example of how to use this process, and I'll get into more detail on these in a moment. So we know that it's analysed the region for the various tempos that I've performed at. How do we get that back out into my tempo map up the top there? Well, it's very simple. I go to Edit, and I go Apply Region Tempo to Project Tempo. That makes sense, right? Now it will ask this question: do you wish to align the downbeat to the nearest project downbeat? I think that question is misleading. Really, it's asking the kind of inverse of that. Well, I'm not going to explain it for now. Just trust me, tick it. The other thing here, maintain relative positions of all other regions. This means when this is ticked, this means that other regions that have been recorded, when it's ticked, their tempo will alter according to the tempo that I'm about to apply to the project. So usually we do want that to happen. So I'm going to leave them both ticked for now, and I'm going to apply. And we can see straight away, wonderfully, I have this amazing, big, complicated tempo map. You can see that even when, broadly speaking, my performance is meant to be regular at the start, where it's just going ba, 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 you can see these slight fluctuations. But all that does is make it feel realer. And I could smooth those out if I wanted to. I could just get in there and delete a load of these, and then it would just be a straight line to this drop. But let's put the click on and just compare. I'll turn the sound effects off so you can hear what's going on. So it's very clearly timing up quite nicely. Let's go to the slow down. Yeah, that's fine. That's worked great. Doesn't always work that well, but they're very good today. So, great. Now what this means is, obviously I can use the click to play along too and perform other things. If I like the pacing but I don't like the thing I've recorded, then I can just go back and re-record something along to that click, okay? That can sometimes is a bit difficult if you need some practice recording to click. The other thing though that's great is, right, anything that is synced to the project tempo will now obviously change according to the tempo map, and that includes all loops. So all the Apple loops, let's do that. Let's just put that in for a joke. 12-bar blues, drop it on this audio track. I'm going to kill the original recording, and I'm just going to loop that out over the length of all the changes. Listen to the speed change on this bad boy. You see? So I can use the tempo map to change anything that's synced. Obviously, if you do this with audio, you're going to get some what we call artifacts, which are like giveaway kind of glitches of the time stretch process that Logic uses. But let's just listen to it anyway. You can see it's sped up there as well. So super useful. Another good way of demonstrating this is to use, well, something like Drummer. I'll just demonstrate this. If you think about it, right, this means that you could write a big, gorgeous theme. You could have a melody with some chords and it's all been arranged in the way you want in another whole project. And you can just drag and drop it in here. The pacing will just match. The tempo will just match your film. So like you forget about the pacing once you've recorded that first example. So I've got Kyle here doing his paper hearts. I'm just going to loop it for the duration. Let's do this extreme slow down and you'll see. Go Kyle. He's really rocking it. You can see it's following the tempo, right? Brilliant. Let's see how slow he can go. Oops. Interesting, no? Good. Now, of course, the other thing that's worth highlighting, you will have obviously realised this already, is that any synthesis that is synchronised to your tempo, so that could be LFO stuff, is going to do the same thing, right? I've got this sort of motion sequence and sculpture. I'm just going to map, this is the sync kind of zone. You can see that it's synced here. I'm not going to go into too much detail about sculpture, but if you listen, the sound is thus. If I record that, that'll do. And you can hear that rhythmic pattern. Gonna go into the piano roll and just kind of tidy it up, because I'm just going to time stretch this for the duration of this slow down. I'm not looping this one because if I looped it, then it would be re-triggered as a sound every time. It would just and I want it to just be continuous, so it needs to be stretched. But listen to the internal kind of rhythmic element of this motion sequence as we go into the slow down tempo bit. There it goes. It suddenly looks very much like a kind of 80s science fiction, low budget science fiction movie. Good, huh? Very useful. Now, you may not be much of like a jammer, you may not be that confident playing a keyboard and so on, and you may not just have any ideas that day. But you don't need to have music to get pacing. And I'm just going to give you a quick example, irrelevant really of the movie. You can use any sound and just record the tempo, speed and vibe that you want. So I'm just going to show you how, I'll just go from slow to fast and I'll show you what you mean. I'll show you what I mean. What do you mean? What do you mean? So you could go through a whole film, just play the drums in if you'd rather. So now, obviously, I can just go in, my smart tempo, analyze it just like we did previously. I always do this, remove original recording tempo and analyze again. It doesn't always make much of a difference. And let's just have a look in more detail at what's happened here. Now, when there are quite fast time changes and tempo changes, the smart tempo can get a little bit confused. As you can see here, suddenly we've only got 3 beats in that bar. And only 2 in there. 1 in there. What's going on? What does it think the tempo is? 149 versus 124. So what it's doing there is it's interpreted it as a sort of half time. Like a beat down, if you will. But I can fix that. Firstly, obviously I can just get in here, scale this selection like that, move that marker like that, maybe move that marker. Just experiment with these. They all do slightly different things or different combinations of things. But notice this 2 times 2 and half 2. What I'm gonna do is first is, right, I'm gonna scale one side and move the other. Notice it says there, scale on the left and move on the right. And you can see that, stretching the one on the left and moving everything along on the right, sort of independently. Then I'm just gonna move those independently and line them up better. Now this bar, look, there's only got 2 beats in that bar. Now that ain't right, is it? So I'm gonna set this up over 2 bars. Move and scale like that. Now you can see this now we have 2 hits per those bars, right? So I'm going to select those 2 bars by just grabbing the top grey bit there. And I'm going to hit the divide by 2 because that will turn it into 1 bar, right? Look at that, bosh. And then I probably could have continued to do that later on, but if you notice it speeds up again. So I'll just do the same thing here, I think. Scale left, move right, set it up over the 4 notes, the 4 bars. Scale it, move it, line it up, etc, etc. There you go, that's done that one. I didn't need to use the half then, I was just able to push it along. And for this one, because it's so close to being 4 notes laid out over 2 bars, I'm just going to pull that bit back, select those 2, grabbing the top of the grey bit, divide by 2, and then it's 1 bar, you see? Ah, the penny is dropping upon thee. Now then, you can experiment with this, okay? It's not rocket science. Really isn't. It's a case of experimenting. You always have your undo list that you can go back and fiddle around with. Now, I've made this very tightly timed up, but because this wasn't even musical, it was just for the pacing, perhaps it wouldn't matter that much. So long as it's got a rough idea of the fact that it's a big slowdown and speed up again. So now I've tidied all that up, edit. Don't analyze it again because I had to fix the analysis. What we're going to do is just straight away, we're just going to apply the region tempo to project tempo like we did before. Keep those 2 ticked. And look at that. We've got an amazing slow down and speed up. Then, of course, I could just ditch that. That's just my own click. I've essentially recorded a click, adapted the logic click to the click I recorded. And then, of course, I can just either delete it or just mute it. And then use my drummer to pick this up or any other motion synth stuff, whatever you like. Loops, all sorts. A piece of music that I've already written in another project. And let's just see what that sounds like, just for a laugh. You get the idea, I trust. So just to briefly recap, what we've just looked at there is, firstly, I just was banging on about the idea. It's important to try and just, firstly, have a musical, immediate kind of jamming response to the film. Firstly, just to placehold your musical ideas like I did with the strings and get a sense of the structure and how you feel like some of your themes are going to arise when you're just jamming. And when you are jamming, jam, record, go back, do it again, tidy it up. And then once it's kind of all right, you can just leave it. The idea is placeholding, okay, to save time. I don't want to get bogged down into doing detailed arrangements for the first 4 bars. I want to have a big overview of how the whole piece is going to go before I start doing stuff like that. Now, in conjunction with that, we look to smart tempo. If you are recording live performance, there will be fluctuations in tempo. And in fact, that's a good thing because you can use fluctuations in tempo for added sort of drama and to match the pacing of the movie. And that's hopefully what I've demonstrated there. We'd had a lot of slowdowns and speed ups that kind of time up with the movie, particularly in that string performance. And we can use smart tempo then to extract the tempo data from our performances, and then everything else will just fall in line with that. Anything that is synced will just fall in line with that tempo map that we've generated from our own performance. Now, similarly, if you're not that confident, kind of just jamming random sort of tunes, then you can just get the pace down live by choosing an instrument and treating it like a metronome, recording yourself metronoming the speed and the pace that you think the piece should be at that moment. And by doing that, you can like map out a beautiful tempo map according to the pace of the film without actually having to record any music. So 3 angles on that. I hope that's been useful. Okay, sayonara for now.